The champagne bubbles looked like tiny lies floating to the surface, each one bursting with the same hollow pop that seemed to echo through every conversation in this overpriced Dallas penthouse. I stood there, martini in hand, watching my wife Jessica work the room like she owned it, which, considering her boss Austin Grant was footing the bill for this networking gala, she practically did. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "Evan, you look like someone pissed in your olives," Frank Martinez said, appearing at my elbow with his trademark grin. My best friend since our army days had cleaned up nice for tonight, but I could still see the private investigator's calculating eyes scanning the crowd. "Just enjoying the view," I replied, nodding toward Jessica as she laughed at something Austin said. Her hand lingered on his arm a beat too long. My wife's really found her calling in event management. Frank followed my gaze. "Yeah, she's managing something, all right." Jessica looked stunning tonight in a black designer dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. At 35, she still turned heads wherever she went, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her smile practiced and brilliant. She'd been Austin's event coordinator for 2 years now, and the job had changed her, or maybe it had just revealed who she'd always wanted to be. Austin Grant, tech CEO and self-appointed king of Dallas high society, held court near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. At 42, he had that silver fox thing going. Expensive haircut, custom suit, the kind of confidence that came from never having to check his bank balance. He was married to Patricia, a steel magnolia who tolerated his wandering eye as long as he kept funding her charity work. "Evan!" Britt Coleman materialized beside us, already 3 drinks deep and ready to gossip. Jessica's best friend had the subtlety of a sledgehammer and the discretion of a tabloid reporter. "Isn't this party just divine? Austin really knows how to throw them." "He's got excellent taste," I said, watching Austin's hand rest on the small of Jessica's back as he introduced her to some investors. "Oh, honey, you have no idea," Britt giggled, then caught herself. "I mean, the catering, the venue, so sophisticated." Maya Santos, another member of Jessica's inner circle, joined our little group. Where Britt was loud and obvious, Maya was the enabler, always ready with justifications and excuses. "Jessica's done such an amazing job organizing this. She's really found her niche." "She's certainly found something," Frank muttered into his drink. The party swirled around us, a carefully choreographed dance of power and influence. Troy Brennan, Austin's right-hand man and resident sycophant, worked the room with practiced ease, making sure the right people talked to the right people. Security Chief Reynolds, a former Marine with suspicious eyes, stood near the entrance, watching everything. I'd been married to Jessica for 8 years, together for 10. We'd met when I was transitioning out of the military, using my engineering background to build a small tech consulting firm. Those early years had been good. We were building something together, dreaming of the future. But somewhere along the way, Jessica's dreams had gotten bigger than what I could provide. "You know what your problem is, Evan?" Austin's voice cut through my thoughts. He'd approached our group, Jessica at his side, both of them slightly flushed from champagne and attention. "You're too modest. Jessica tells me you sold your encryption software for a fortune, but you act like you're still counting pennies." I smiled tightly. Jessica didn't know about the full extent of that sale, the 300 million sitting in accounts she'd never seen. Call it insurance, or maybe just the paranoia of a man who'd learned to plan for the worst. "I like to keep things simple," I said. "Simple's overrated." Austin laughed, his arm sliding around Jessica's waist with practiced familiarity. "Life's about upgrades, right, Jess?" Jessica's cheeks flushed pink. "Austin's always pushing people to reach higher." "I bet he is," Frank said under his breath. The evening dragged on with the usual parade of small talk and power plays. I found myself studying the dynamics, the way Jessica moved through Austin's world like she belonged there. The way she laughed at his jokes, touched his arm, looked at him with an admiration she hadn't shown me in years. Around 11, the crowd began to thin, but the core group remained. Austin's inner circle, Jessica's friends, the people who mattered in this rarefied air. That's when Austin decided to make his move. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called out, tapping his champagne flute with a knife. The remaining guests turned toward him, sensing drama in the air. "I have an announcement to make." My stomach dropped as Austin reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The room went silent except for Britt's audible gasp. "Jessica," Austin said, dropping to one knee in front of my wife, "you've brought light and joy into my life in ways I never thought possible. You're brilliant, beautiful, and everything I never knew I was looking for." I stood frozen, watching this surreal scene unfold. My wife's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with surprise, or maybe just surprise at the public nature of it. "Will you marry me?" Austin asked, opening the box to reveal a diamond that could probably pay off a small country's debt. The silence stretched for an eternity. I could feel every eye in the room, could sense the collective held breath of the audience. Jessica looked at Austin, then around the room, her gaze sliding past me like I was invisible. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, of course." The room erupted in cheers and applause. Austin slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her deeply while their friends whooped and celebrated. I stood there, watching my marriage end in real time, feeling like the only person at a party who wasn't in on the joke. Frank's hand gripped my shoulder. "Evan, I'm fine," I said quietly, setting down my drink. "Just need some air." I walked calmly to the elevator, ignoring the celebration behind me. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Jessica showing off her ring to Britt and Maya, her face radiant with happiness I hadn't seen in years. The ride down felt like falling. 24 hours later, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing like an angry wasp. The screen showed 184 missed calls, countless text messages, and a voicemail box that had given up trying to keep count. I'd spent the night in my downtown office, a converted loft space that Jessica rarely visited. Too industrial for her tastes, not enough marble and gold fixtures. Perfect for what I needed to do. The first voicemail was from Jessica, her voice tight with panic. "Evan, where are you? We need to talk. This is all just a misunderstanding. Call me back." The second was angrier. "Evan, I know you're getting these messages. Don't be childish. We can work this out." By the 10th message, she was crying. By the 20th, she was screaming. Frank had helped me work through the night, using his PI connections to execute what we called the nuclear option. Every joint account frozen, every credit card canceled, every shared asset locked down tighter than Fort Knox. "Jesus, Evan," Frank said, reviewing the paperwork spread across my desk. "You really did it. She can't access a dime." "She wanted an upgrade," I said, sipping coffee that tasted like revenge. "Let's see how she likes starting from scratch." My phone rang again. Austin's name flashed on the screen. "You need to fix this," he said without preamble. "Jessica's hysterical. She can't access any of her accounts." "Her accounts?" I laughed. "Austin, those were our accounts. Joint accounts. And since I'm no longer interested in sharing, I've made some adjustments. You can't just—" "I can, and I did. Maybe you should have thought about this before proposing to another man's wife. Look, we can work something out. Jessica made a mistake. The only mistake Jessica made was underestimating me." I hung up and immediately blocked his number. Frank was grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. That felt good, didn't it? Just getting started. The next few hours were a masterclass in strategic dismantling. I transferred my personal assets, the ones Jessica didn't even know existed, to offshore accounts. I canceled the lease on our shared penthouse. I even had the utilities shut off, just because I could. Around noon, Jessica showed up at my office with Britt and Maya in tow, looking like a war council of desperate housewives. "Evan, thank God," Jessica said, rushing toward me. She looked terrible. Yesterday's makeup smeared, her hair a mess, still wearing the same dress from the party. There's been some kind of mistake with the banks. All our accounts are frozen. No mistake, I said calmly, not looking up from my laptop. I closed them. You can't do that. Actually, I can. Funny thing about joint accounts, either party can close them. I learned that from my lawyer this morning. Britt stepped forward, her face flushed with indignation. This is ridiculous, Evan. So what if Jessica found someone who appreciates her? You should be happy for her. I finally looked up, meeting Britt's eyes with a smile that made her step back. I am happy, Britt. I'm happy I found out what kind of person I married before I wasted any more time. We can fix this, Maya said, playing her usual role as peacemaker. Everyone just needs to calm down and talk this through like adults. Adults don't propose to married women at parties, I said. Adults don't cheat on their spouses for 2 years and think no one will notice. Jessica's face went white. 2 years? What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and played a recording Frank had made the night before. Jessica and Britt at a wine bar, voices slurred with alcohol and honesty. God, Jess, the way Austin looks at you, and that thing you told me about the boardroom table. Shh, someone might hear. Come on, it's just us. How long have you two been? Since the Christmas party. Almost 2 years now. But it's not just closeness, Britt. He gets me. He sees my potential. And Evan. Evan's comfortable, safe. But Austin makes me feel alive. The recording ended. Jessica stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. 2 years, I repeated. 2 years of lies, of pretending to be happy, of making me feel like I was going crazy when I noticed you pulling away. Evan, Save it. I stood up, grabbing my jacket. I'm going to lunch. When I get back, I want you gone. All of you. I walked past them toward the elevator, but Jessica grabbed my arm. Please, she whispered. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. I love you. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. You love my money. There's a difference. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside. As they closed, I saw Jessica collapse into Britt's arms, sobbing. Frank met me at our usual diner, a greasy spoon that served the best burgers in Dallas and didn't give a damn about anyone's social status. How'd it go? He asked, sliding into the booth across from me. Like watching a building collapse in slow motion, I said. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. Any regrets? I thought about it, really considered the question. 8 years of marriage, 10 years together. There had been good times, moments of real happiness, but those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now. No, I said finally. No regrets. Frank nodded and pulled out a manila folder. Good, because I've got some interesting information about your friend Austin. He spread out photographs and documents across the table. Bank records, hotel receipts, private investigator reports. Austin Grant isn't just a cheater, Frank said. He's a serial cheater. Jessica's number 4 in the last 3 years. And here's the kicker. He's never actually left his wife for any of them. I studied the evidence, feeling a cold anger settle in my chest. So Jessica thinks she's special. They all did, right up until Austin got bored and moved on to the next upgrade. Does Patricia know? Austin's wife? She knows everything. Turns out she's been building her own exit strategy. She's just waiting for the right moment to take him for everything he's worth. I smiled, an idea forming in my mind. Think she'd be interested in a partnership? What kind of partnership? The kind where everyone gets what they deserve. That evening, I sat in my office watching the sun set over Dallas, my phone buzzing with increasingly desperate messages from Jessica and Austin. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the plan taking shape in my mind. Jessica wanted an upgrade. Austin wanted his cake and to eat it too. Their friends wanted to be part of the drama without facing any consequences. They were all about to learn that actions have consequences, and that the quiet, underestimated husband they dismissed wasn't going down without a fight. I picked up my phone and dialed Patricia Grant's number. Time to make some new allies. Patricia Grant's voice was crisp and cultured when she answered, the kind of tone that came from generations of old money and finishing schools. Mrs. Grant, this is Evan Hollis. I believe we have some mutual interests to discuss. A pause. Mr. Hollis, I was wondering when you'd call. We met at an upscale restaurant in Highland Park, the kind of place where conversations were private and the staff knew how to be invisible. Patricia was exactly what I'd expected. Elegant, controlled, with steel beneath the silk. At 40, she was still beautiful, but there was a hardness around her eyes that spoke of too many betrayals. I'm sorry about last night, she said once we'd ordered. Austin's always been dramatic, but proposing to your wife in public was particularly tasteless, even for him. You knew about Jessica? I know about all of them. Patricia sipped her wine with practiced calm. Jessica's lasted longer than most. I thought she might actually be the one to finally take him off my hands. And you're okay with that? Patricia laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. Mr. Hollis, I stopped being okay with my husband's behavior years ago, but I've been strategic about my response. Austin thinks I'm the dutiful wife who looks the other way. In reality, I've been documenting everything. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs, financial records, and what looked like a private investigator's report that made Frank's work look amateur. Impressive, I said, flipping through the evidence. So why haven't you used this? Timing. Austin's company is about to go public. His stock options are worth nearly $1 billion. If I divorce him now, I get half. If I wait until after certain revelations come to light and his company tanks. She smiled coldly. Well, half of nothing is still nothing. But the prenup has a morality clause that becomes very interesting when there's criminal fraud involved. Criminal fraud? Austin's been cooking the books to inflate his company's value before the IPO. I have proof. The question is when and how to use it. I closed the folder and looked at this woman with new respect. What do you need from me? Jessica's not going to give up easily. She thinks she's landed the golden goose. I need her to push Austin into making mistakes, big public ones that I can use. And in return, I help you make both of them pay for what they've done. We shook hands across the table, two scorned spouses forming an alliance that would have made Machiavelli proud. The next morning, I put Phase 2 into motion. Frank had spent the night setting up surveillance equipment in Jessica's new hotel room. She'd had to downgrade significantly since her credit cards were canceled. We watched her pace around the tiny space, making frantic phone calls. Austin, you promised you'd take care of everything, she said into her phone. I can't even buy coffee. This is humiliating. I couldn't hear Austin's response, but Jessica's face grew red with anger. What do you mean you can't access your accounts right now? What kind of CEO can't access his own money? Ah. Patricia had been busy too. That afternoon, I decided to have some fun. I showed up at Austin's office building, dressed in my best suit, carrying a briefcase, and wearing the kind of confident smile that got you past security. Evan Hollis to see Mr. Grant, I told the receptionist. He's expecting me. She buzzed up, and within minutes, Troy Brennan appeared to escort me to the executive floor. Austin's office was exactly what I'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive art, and a desk the size of a small aircraft carrier. Austin stood when I entered, trying to project authority despite the obvious stress lines around his eyes. Evan, I wasn't expecting you. I thought we should talk man to man, I said, settling into the chair across from his desk without being invited. About Jessica. Look, I know this is awkward. Awkward? I laughed. Austin, awkward is wearing the same outfit to a party. This is something else entirely. Troy hovered near the door, clearly uncomfortable with the tension in the room. What do you want? Austin asked. I want to make you an offer. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a document. A settlement agreement. You give Jessica $50,000 to get her back on her feet, and I won't contest the divorce. Everyone walks away clean. Austin's eyes lit up. That's very reasonable. There's just one condition. I smiled. I want you to sign it in front of Jessica and all your friends. Make it official. Show everyone how much you value her. Why? Because I want there to be no doubt about what kind of man you are. Austin studied the document, his lawyer's instincts warring with his desire to make this problem go away. Greed won, as it usually did. Fine, set it up. I called Jessica from Austin's office, putting the phone on speaker. Evan? Her voice was small, hopeful. Are you ready to talk? I'm ready to settle this, I said. Meet us at Austin's penthouse tonight. Bring your friends. It's time to make this official. That evening, I arrived at Austin's penthouse to find the same crowd that had witnessed Jessica's engagement the night before. The mood was different now, tense, uncertain. Jessica looked like she'd been crying, and Austin kept checking his phone nervously. Thank you all for coming, I said, addressing the room like I was hosting the party. I know the last 24 hours have been confusing for everyone. Jessica stepped forward. Evan? I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen like this. I know, I said gently. That's why I'm here, to make sure everything is handled properly. I pulled out the settlement agreement and set it on Austin's coffee table. Austin has graciously agreed to provide you with a settlement of $50,000, enough to start your new life together. The room was silent. $50,000 was pocket change to these people, an insult disguised as generosity. 50,000? Britt said, her voice shrill. That's it? Austin's face flushed. It's a reasonable amount. For a 2-year relationship? Maya asked. For leaving her husband? I watched the dynamics shift, saw Jessica's friends turn on Austin with the ruthless efficiency of sharks. I thought you loved her, Britt continued. I thought this was about true love and soulmates and all that romantic bullshit you were spouting last night. It is, Austin said weakly. But we need to be practical. Practical? Jessica's voice was rising. You have $1 billion company and you're offering me $50,000? It's complicated. No, it's not. Jessica's voice turned cold. It's simple. You used me just like Evan said you would. She turned to me, her eyes blazing. You knew this would happen, didn't you? You knew he'd lowball me. I shrugged. I hoped you'd see his true character eventually. Jessica grabbed a bottle of wine from Austin's counter, a 1982 Bordeaux that probably cost more than most people's cars. And before anyone could stop her, she poured the entire bottle over Austin's head. The room erupted in chaos. Austin sputtered and cursed, his expensive suit ruined. Jessica screamed at him, calling him every name in the book. Their friends chose sides, voices rising in accusation and defense. In the middle of it all, I calmly picked up the unsigned settlement agreement and walked toward the door. Where are you going? Jessica called after me. Home, I said. To my new life, without any of you in it. As I waited for the elevator, I could hear the fight continuing behind me. Patricia Grant emerged from the stairwell, having watched the whole thing from the emergency exit. Nicely done, she said. Austin just lost his temper in front of witnesses and showed everyone exactly who he really is. And Jessica just assaulted him with a $4,000 bottle of wine, I added. I'm sure that will make for interesting gossip. The elevator arrived, and we rode down together in comfortable silence. Phase 2 was complete. Austin and Jessica's perfect romance was cracking under the pressure of reality, but I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The video went viral within hours. Someone at the party had recorded Jessica dumping wine over Austin's head, and by morning it was trending on social media with hashtags like Chatham Winegate and Cheaters comeuppance. I watched it from my office while eating breakfast, Frank laughing beside me as we replayed the moment of Austin's humiliation. "Look at his face," Frank wheezed. "He looks like a drowned rat." My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Phase 3? I smiled and typed back. Phase 3. What Austin and Jessica didn't know was that their public meltdown was just the beginning. While they'd been busy destroying each other, Frank and I had been busy destroying them. The first domino fell at noon. Austin's biggest investor, a conservative family fund that prized discretion above all else, issued a statement withdrawing their support from his company's IPO. The official reason was concerns about leadership stability. The real reason was the video of Austin getting wine dumped by his mistress while his wife watched from the sidelines. The second domino fell an hour later when Jessica's event planning clients started canceling contracts. Apparently, being the other woman in a viral scandal wasn't great for business, especially when your job required discretion and professionalism. But the third domino was my masterpiece. Frank had spent weeks infiltrating Jessica's inner circle, befriending Britt and Maya, earning their trust. What they didn't know was that he'd been recording their conversations, documenting every cruel joke, every casual betrayal, every moment of mean girl nastiness. At 2 p.m., I released the greatest hits compilation. "Oh my God, did you see Evan's face when Austin proposed?" Britt's voice, crystal clear through hidden microphones. "He looked like someone had kicked his puppy. It was hilarious." "I almost felt sorry for him," Maya replied. "Almost. But honestly, Jessica's been miserable for years. At least now she can be honest about it." "The closeness must be amazing," Britt giggled. "Remember what Jessica said about the boardroom table? I can't even look at Austin's office the same way. She said Austin's got stamina like a marathon runner. Poor Evan probably couldn't keep up." The recording went on for 20 minutes, each revelation more damaging than the last. Jessica's friends discussing her affair in graphic detail, mocking me, rating Austin's performance, even speculating about how much money Jessica would get in the divorce. I released it on every social media platform simultaneously, tagged everyone who'd been at the party, and sat back to watch the fireworks. The response was immediate and brutal. The same social media mob that had celebrated Austin's humiliation turned on Jessica and her friends with righteous fury. The comments were vicious. "What kind of friends talk about someone like this? These women are disgusting. I feel so bad for the husband. He seems like a decent guy." Within hours, Jessica was trending for all the wrong reasons. Her remaining clients fled. Her social media accounts were flooded with hate. Even her own friends started distancing themselves, posting damage control statements about how they'd been taken out of context. But I wasn't done. That evening, I put on my best suit and drove to the Dallas Country Club, where Austin was scheduled to give a presentation to potential investors. Patricia had made sure I was on the guest list. Austin looked terrible. The wine incident had made him a laughingstock. The investor pullout had shaken his confidence, and now he was facing a room full of people who'd seen him at his worst. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice lacking its usual authority. "I know there's been some publicity recently, but I want to assure you that my personal life has no bearing on my company's performance." That's when I stood up. "Actually, Austin, I think your personal life says everything about your character." The room turned to look at me. Austin's face went pale. "Mr. Hollis," he said carefully, "I don't think this is the appropriate venue. For honesty," I walked toward the front of the room, every eye following me. "I think it's the perfect venue. These people are considering investing their money with you. They deserve to know who they're dealing with." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the room's projection system. Austin's face appeared on the screen, not from last night, but from 6 months ago, in a hotel room with Jessica. "This is from the Adolphus Hotel," I said calmly. "Room 1247, February 14th, Valentine's Day. While I was at home making dinner reservations for my wife, She was here with your CEO. The room was silent. The footage was grainy but unmistakable. Austin and Jessica in bed together, laughing about something, completely unaware they were being recorded. How did you... Austin started. Hotel security cameras, I lied smoothly. Amazing what you can access with the right connections and a good lawyer. Actually, Frank had gotten the footage from a private investigator Patricia had hired, but Austin didn't need to know that. The point is, I continued, this is who Austin Grant really is. A man who lies to his wife, lies to his investors, and lies to himself. Is that really someone you want to trust with your money? One by one, the investors stood up and left. Austin watched his future walk out the door, powerless to stop it. I disconnected my phone and headed for the exit, but Austin grabbed my arm. You've destroyed everything, he hissed. My company, my reputation, my life. No, I said quietly. You destroyed it. I just made sure everyone could see what you'd done. I left him standing there, alone in the empty conference room, staring at the blank projection screen. Outside, Patricia was waiting by my car. That was brutal, she said, but she was smiling. That was justice, I replied. How's your divorce proceeding? Filed this morning. With Austin's company in free fall and his reputation destroyed, the prenup's morality clause kicks in. I get everything. And Jessica? Patricia's smile turned predatory. Jessica's about to learn that Austin's very good at making promises he can't keep, especially when he's broke. We shook hands again, our alliance complete. Austin was finished, his company sinking, his marriage over, his reputation in ruins. Jessica was about to discover that her Prince Charming was actually a pauper. But even that wasn't enough. Not yet. I had one more move to make, one final checkmate that would complete my revenge and close this chapter of my life forever. The endgame was about to begin. 3 days later, Jessica called me. Her voice was small, defeated, nothing like the confident woman who'd said yes to Austin's proposal less than a week ago. Evan, can we meet? Please? I need to talk to you. We met at a coffee shop in Deep Ellum, neutral territory, far from the upscale haunts where our drama had played out. Jessica looked like she'd aged years in days. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her hair unwashed, her eyes red from crying. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down across from her. What do you want, Jessica? I want to apologize, really apologize. Not because I want something, but because you deserve to hear it. I studied her face, looking for the manipulation, the angle, but all I saw was exhaustion and genuine regret. I'm listening. I was selfish. I was cruel. I convinced myself that what I was doing was justified because I was unhappy, but that's not true. I was just scared. Scared of what? Of being ordinary. Of having a normal life with a good man who loved me. Austin made me feel special, important, like I was part of something bigger. She laughed bitterly. Turns out I was just part of his pattern. He left you? The moment his company started falling apart, suddenly he couldn't afford to leave Patricia. Couldn't afford the scandal of a messy divorce. I went from being his soulmate to being a liability overnight. I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but I pushed it down. Jessica had made her choices. What do you want from me? I asked again. Nothing. I know it's too late for forgiveness. I know I destroyed everything good between us. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I threw away. She stood up, gathering her purse with shaking hands. For what it's worth, Evan, you were the best man I've ever known. I hope someday you can find someone who deserves you. She walked away, leaving me alone with my coffee and my thoughts. Part of me wanted to call her back, to offer some kind of reconciliation. But that part was small and getting smaller. Jessica had burned our life to the ground for a fantasy. Now she had to live in the ashes. That evening, I had dinner with Patricia at her newly reclaimed mansion. Austin had been forced to move out, and she was already redecorating, erasing every trace of their marriage. "How does it feel?" she asked as we sat on her terrace overlooking the city. "Empty," I said honestly. "I thought it would feel better." Revenge usually does. It's the anticipation that's satisfying, not the execution. "Any regrets?" Patricia considered the question, swirling her wine in the crystal glass. "About Austin? No. He made his bed. About the collateral damage?" She shrugged. "Some people get caught in the crossfire. That's life." "Jessica came to see me today. She apologized." "Do you believe her?" "I think so. I think she finally understands what she lost." "And?" "And it doesn't matter. Understanding doesn't undo the damage." Patricia nodded. "You're learning. That's good. It means you won't make the same mistakes again." We sat in comfortable silence, two survivors of other people's selfishness, watching the sun set over Dallas. Tomorrow, Patricia would finalize her divorce and walk away with nearly everything Austin had built. Tomorrow, I would start figuring out what came next. But tonight, we were just two people who had won a war that nobody should have had to fight. A week later, Frank helped me pack up the last of my belongings from the office. I was moving to Colorado, starting fresh somewhere Austin and Jessica were just bad memories. "You sure about this?" Frank asked, taping up a box of books. "I'm sure. There's nothing left for me here." "What about Jessica? She's been trying to call you." "What about her?" "She's broke, Evan, completely broke. Living in a studio apartment, working at a call center. Some people are saying you went too far." I looked at my best friend, this man who'd helped me orchestrate one of the most complete destructions of two people's lives I'd ever seen. "Frank, Jessica made her choice when she decided I wasn't enough for her. She chose Austin, chose his money, chose a life that required stepping on me to get what she wanted. I didn't destroy her life, I just stopped subsidizing it." "And Austin?" "Austin destroyed himself. I just made sure everyone was watching when he did it." Frank nodded, understanding. We'd been through too much together for him to judge me now. "So what's next?" "Next, I disappear. New city, new life, new everything. I'm done being the guy who got played. From now on, I'm the guy who won." I took one last look around the office that had been my refuge during the worst week of my life, then walked out the door without looking back. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office in Denver when I got a package with no return address. Inside was a newspaper clipping from the Dallas Morning News. "Local tech CEO sentenced to 5 years for fraud." The article detailed Austin's fall from grace, how the SEC investigation had uncovered years of financial manipulation, how his company had collapsed owing investors hundreds of millions, how he'd pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence. At the bottom of the clipping, someone had written in elegant handwriting, "Thank you for your partnership, P." I smiled and filed the clipping away. Austin Grant, the man who'd thought he could take whatever he wanted without consequences, was about to learn what real consequences looked like. As for Jessica, I'd heard through mutual friends that she'd moved back to her hometown in Ohio, working as a receptionist at her uncle's insurance agency. The woman who'd dreamed of upgrading her life had downgraded to something smaller than what she'd started with. I felt no satisfaction in her fate, no joy in her suffering. She'd simply ceased to matter to me, which was perhaps the cruelest fate of all. I'd learned something important in those dark days after the party. Revenge wasn't about making your enemies suffer. It was about making sure they could never hurt you again. Austin was in prison. Jessica was irrelevant. Their friends had scattered to avoid the fallout. And I was free. Free to build a new life. Free to find someone who would choose me first, instead of settling for me as a consolation prize. Free to be the man I was meant to be, instead of the man others expected me to be. The war was over. I had won. And sometimes, winning was enough.